So you should now, if you're logged into the webinar, see the EpiCenter summary page. It should be a series of charts in varying shades of blue. Does anyone not see that? All right, hearing nothing, I think we're good to go. All right. So the purpose of the EpiCenter system is that we are collecting data from 78 New Jersey facilities. That includes, I believe, 68 hospitals and 2 federally qualified health centers. And we are analyzing the data that we are receiving from those facilities to look for trends that might be indicative of a threat to public health. The bulk of the analysis that we're doing in that regard is looking at the data contained in the chief complaints, which we compare with a variety of keyword lists for all of the classifications that we use. All of our data is classified according to the data in the chief complaint using lists of regular expressions, which we then are able to slot into any number of our classifications. And any record can be included in more than one classification. If anyone on this call does not already have the keyword list and is interested in receiving that information, I would be happy to send it to you. Just let me know when we're done and I will jot your name down. I'll be happy to send you that information. So as I said here, this is the EpiCenter summary page. This is meant to be a snapshot of what is going on in your area. And this is the landing page that you see when you sign in to EpiCenter. It is hard-coded to 7 days back and is meant to just let you know right off the bat if there is anything very unusual happening in your region. This is the default view. It is a classifier summary view. You do have some options to customize this view to another view that may be of more relevance to the work that you do, and I will go over how to make that change in a bit. So moving on to the charts page here. On the charts page, you are able to query any of the data that is accessible to you in your region using all of the classifications and analysis methods that we have here in EpiCenter. So in order to do that, if you start at the top here, this is the geography box here. You can look at a state view, you can look at a zip code or a county or a facility name or health system name. Our date back selector here will accept any value of months, days, weeks, or years. You can also chart by MMWR week. If that's the case, you're going to want to select week and then choose your MMWR week in the date selector here. And then this date is the date that we are going back from. It will always default to today. And if you want to change that, you can do so by either typing in the date or selecting the calendar icon here to produce a pop-up. And you can look at any date that we have data for. So we've been collecting data in the state of New Jersey going back to, I believe, 2006 or 2007. So there are a number of years of data in here, and you can look at total counts or any number of classifications, and that's also all available for download. In our analysis link here, this is where you would go to choose some of the analysis parameters. We have a number of analysis methods here for you to look at. I always preface this by saying that I am not a statistician and I would not be the best contact to address any specific queries that you might have regarding why one method might be a better choice than another given your date range or the classification that you're looking at. But if you do have any questions in that vein, please let me know and I will be happy to pass those along to one of my colleagues who will be able to get you some information on that front. The constant threshold analysis method here, just as an FYI, is just a horizontal line set at whatever value we want to set for that. For most classifications that use constant threshold, it will be set at 0. However, there are a number of instances in New Jersey, for example, in your heat-related illness surveillance where we set that value to, I believe, 2 or 5, depending on the geography that we're looking at, rather than 0. So just something to keep in mind. This is not going to be a great option for you if you are looking for things like influenza-related illness or things like that. But when we are running surveillance for the immediate notification classifications, that is the surveillance method of choice. Going down the list here, as I mentioned, we can represent this data by number of records, percentage of records, or a rate per population. This option will not be available to you if you are looking at data on a per facility basis. We can total this by hour, day, week, or month. We can also do things like enable hours, combine results, and plot predicted values. The enable hours functionality, as an FYI, would be useful if you want to look at a 24-hour period other than the standard midnight to midnight view. So if you wanted to see 5 days of data where a day is defined as 5 a.m. to 5 a.m., you would want to select that option. Moving on to our classifiers. At the top here we have total counts, and I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to spot check a few that I think might be of use, or the most commonly used ones here in EpiCenter. Total counts will just review all activity in a given query. Infectious disease symptoms can be broken down into a number of symptoms here. We do run surveillance on most of the classifications in this drop-down here for the state of New Jersey. So if you receive anomaly notification emails, you will likely become familiar with these particular classifications. Moving down to the influenza-related illness classifications here. These are divided up into fever and ILI symptoms, ILI specified or ILI symptoms. One thing to keep in mind, the fever plus ILI symptoms is looking for some fever indicator in the actual text of the chief complaint. Something like patient is complaining of fever, patient states that they have a temperature. This does not take into account the actual recorded temperature that is taken at the time of the ED registration. We are receiving actual temperature values from a number of hospitals in the state. However, that information is not something that we have wide coverage on yet, although that is improving with a number of special projects that we are working on. And then, of course, we have a number of custom classifiers here. The New Jersey Department of Health has been very, very active in building classifiers to meet their custom specifications. So those are all accessible either under the custom classifier heading here or in the case of the severe weather classifiers, these down here. So moving on then, you can look at any combination of age groups. This defaults to all, but you can, for instance, if you wanted to look at just data from a pediatric population, you can hold down the control key and multi-select pediatric age group and look for information that way. Gender defaults to all genders, but you can also look at male or female or unknown. And then your provider type down here is always going to default to hospital or urgent care. If you want to see all facilities in the state, you're going to want to either select all provider types or multi-select hospital, urgent care, and SQHC. Just as an FYI, we do have 2 federally qualified health centers connected in the state of New Jersey. They do not send a lot of data, and the data that they send can sometimes come in rather late. So this may or may not be something that you would have an interest in. And then the last item here to take a look at is the total by home or facility. Totaling by home will return all results in the geographic area that you have selected using the patient's reported home zip code. Totaling by facility will return all results in your chosen geography by facility location. So if, for instance, you are doing surveillance or downloading data for a period where there might have been a lot of out-of-town visitors, for instance, for the Super Bowl or for the upcoming World Meeting of Families Congress, you'll likely find that totaling by facility is going to be a better option for you than totaling by home. So I'm going to create a few charts here. I'm just going to select a classification, an analysis method. I'm going to plot some predicted values here. Okay. And this is our chart. So clicking on the chart will expand it. You can see here we have 3 lines on this chart. The blue line represents the total counts, or the actual value of your chosen classifications here. The green value is the predicted value based on the classification that we've chosen. In this case, it's Q-sum exponential moving average. And then the red line here would be the threshold that we would define using that chosen statistical analysis method. As a default, this is typically set at 4 standard deviations above the predicted value, but this is customizable, and there are a number of surveillance tasks in the state of New Jersey where that threshold will be higher. If you wanted to download total counts for each day and your date range here for this particular classification, you can do so by selecting the Download Counts option. We go over to the Patients tab. This will just take a second because this is a lot of data to load. Okay. So now we can see the actual patient line listings that are associated with this chart. We have the timestamp of each of these registrations, some basic demographic information about the patient, the facility name that they viewed or that they went to, their visit ID, their reason for visit, which can be either a free text value or something that is chosen from a drop-down list or a pick list during the triage process, and then the classification that we've chosen here. As an FYI, if you're wondering why you might be seeing some information from outside of the normal viewing area, state users right now do have access to a slightly larger viewing area because of the World Meeting of Families. So there are going to be some Pennsylvania hospitals in this data set here. And then if you want to submit additional information about any of these individual records, we can expand a line listing by selecting the plus sign to the left of the record. And you can see in this case we have the patient's date of birth, a patient identifier, the diagnosis codes associated with this record, and the discharge information as well. So just an FYI, all of that information is accessible here for the facilities that are providing it. And then if you wanted to download this data, you can do so using the Download Patients functionality. If you have more than 10,000 records in this set, you will need to choose the CSV option and not the Excel option, but otherwise both are valid. Any questions about charts? Okay. Hearing nothing, I'm going to move on to the Maps tab. Okay. So this is the Maps tab here. You'll see on the left-hand side of your screen here that the choices available to you are nearly exactly the same as what is available on the chart screen, so this should look very familiar. You do have the ability to add some markers for this. For instance, if you wanted to view the locations of any of the facilities in the viewing area, you can select this checkbox. We also have air quality data available to you. We've heard from a number of users in other jurisdictions that especially if you're doing analysis of asthma or other respiratory issues, that it can be helpful to view the instances of emergency department visits associated with those conditions, along with corresponding air quality data. So I am going to go ahead and pull some data using the map functionality. I'm going to go with the same settings that I used for the chart that we produced on the charts page. So we're going to go with abdominal. I do need to go back a day because since we're not looking at a historic view or a larger time frame on the Maps tab, you want to make sure that it's that you're not looking at today's date. I'm going to select air quality just so you can see what that looks like. And we're going to hit submit and wait for our data to load. Okay. So you can see these are our keys down here. Here is your air quality key, and then here is your classifier percentile key. There's no shading at this moment for the classification that we've chosen at the state level, and you can see here that there are some air quality issues in the surrounding areas, and you can get some more information about that or download that data just by clicking on any of the clouds that are popping up over this region. If I want to drill in a little bit closer, I can change this state view to a zip code view. I'll just take a moment. And this is done through a Google Maps API, just as an FYI. So this map would work the same way that a normal Google map works, in that you can double-click to zoom in or use your scroll bar. You can grab and drag the map to move to the location that you want to take a look at. So you should be pretty familiar with the way that the actual map itself works. Okay. And here is our map view looking at the zip code level. And again, you can see that we have a number of zip codes in the Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania that are now accessible to this user because of a recent data sharing agreement. So if you wanted to take a look at any of these shaded areas and get some more information, you can right-click. It'll show you which zip code or county or what have you that you're looking at, and you can produce a chart from here. That functions the same way as any other chart in the Charts tab would work. So you can download these counts, you can look at patient line listings, and you can also download all of the individual patient information from this screen. Okay, moving on. I'm going to head over to the Anomalies tab now. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we are running surveillance on the chief complaints that we're receiving from each emergency department interaction for our connected facilities in the state. Depending on the analysis method and parameters that we're using, a given classification or a given issue might be considered anomalous if the total counts for that classification exceed the threshold using the chosen statistical analysis method within a 24-hour period. We run several different kinds of surveillance tasks. We do immediate detection of any immediate notification classifications. Those would be things like Ebola, smallpox, ricin, bioterrorism, things like that. And then most of our other classifications are done on either an hourly or a daily basis. A few caveats to the notion that when the total counts exceed the threshold that there will be an anomaly. There are a few caveats there. The first is that there still needs to be at least 10 counts for the total, for the chosen classification in that geography. The reason being that if you are at a critical access hospital and you only get 5 visits a week and you go from having 1 cough case a week to 2, that obviously represents a very large statistical increase, but not necessarily something that would be of concern to public health. Another thing to keep in mind is that in addition to exceeding the total, or rather the threshold using counts in order to be considered an anomaly, the data associated with that classification in the geography that you've selected needs to also exceed the threshold in percentage of total. So just something to keep in mind if you ever are doing your own analysis and you have produced a chart that you think looks anomalous but did not generate an anomaly. So I'm just going to select one of the anomalies on this page. This is the anomaly detail page. The 4 quadrants here represent some basic information about this particular interaction that you might be interested in. The upper left quadrant here just has some basic information about the detection of the anomaly. So we have the predicted counts, the actual number of counts, the threshold, the number of standard deviations that we had the threshold set at for this particular statistical analysis method, the date that the anomaly was detected, and also the current disposition of this anomaly. You can see that this particular anomaly disposition is active. An anomaly will remain active until this disposition is changed. I'm going to click on this so you can see the dispositions. I'm not going to change this because this is a production anomaly, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but this anomaly will remain active until a user either logs in and selects a disposition other than active or new for this. Also, creating an investigation from this anomaly or including this particular anomaly in an existing investigation will also take this particular record out of an active state. And then at that point, it would no longer show up in the matching anomalies list here when you land on the anomalies page. In the upper right quadrant here, we have the location of the anomaly. It's hard to see here what we're looking at, but because it's zoomed in so far, but this is meant to be the location of the hospital in question, since this is a hospital level anomaly. On the bottom right-hand corner here, we have the chart that is associated with this particular record, and this should look very familiar to you at this point. We have the actual value, the predicted value, the threshold value, and then right here we see the moment that the threshold was crossed by the actual value. You'll see here that we have a dotted line as well that is sometimes overlapping the blue line, sometimes it is not overlapping the blue line. This dotted value represents the current value or the current number of counts associated here. And if you're looking back historically and you see an instance in the past where the dotted line differed from the solid line, what that indicates is that we received some late data. So in this case, this solid blue line represents the number of counts that we had in the system at this time, and then retroactively we received more data that raised that value in the past. And then if we go over to the Patients tab, I may or may not be able to show you this because sometimes it can take a while for this to populate. Any record here that is highlighted in yellow, this represents an anomaly that was not included, or that was rather not associated with the detection of the anomaly, but that still falls into this particular classification and geography, and so is included here for informational purposes. And then in the lower left-hand quadrant here, we have a distribution of patient records. This defaults to age group. You can also look at facility name, gender, and zip code. For obvious reasons, the facility distribution is not going to be helpful to you in a facility level anomaly like this one, but if you're looking at a county or state level anomaly, that might be of interest. And we also have the option here to do a comparison. So if you wanted to compare the counts for this particular classification at this location for a similar time last year, you would be able to do so here. Any questions about anomalies? Hearing nothing, I'm going to move over to the Investigations tab. Okay. So this is the Investigations landing page. I'm just going to choose an investigation at random here, and we'll go with this one since it's fairly new. So this is the investigation detail page. You can see here in the upper left-hand quadrant we have some basic information about the investigation, the name of the investigator who started it, the number of accessible anomalies that are associated with this investigation. From this quadrant, you can change the investigator. And again, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. This would have to be, if you're going to assign this to another investigator, it would have to be someone within your organization, but you can do that here. You can change the investigation name. If you wanted to associate additional anomalies to this investigation, you could do so using this link. And then you can add comments. Those will show up in the lower left-hand quadrant of this screen here and update the state of the investigation. So this is an investigation that does not yet have a state associated with it. When you are ready to conclude an investigation, you can select that option, and then at that point you would have another option show up in the upper left-hand quadrant here that would allow you to apply a resolution to this particular investigation. And again, here on the right quadrant, the upper right quadrant, we have the location of the investigation, and that here is represented by a pin in Camden County. And then in the lower right-hand quadrant, we have links to the anomalies that are associated with this particular investigation. Clicking on either of these links will take you back to the anomaly detail page for either of these. Any questions or concerns about investigations? Hearing nothing, I'm going to move on. And then again, if anyone has any questions or concerns, we will have plenty of time for discussion when the walkthrough is done here, which should be fairly shortly. So I'm going to move over to the Reports tab at this point. As I mentioned earlier, everyone's permissions are going to be a little bit different, and that is especially true for reports. You might find that some users only have access to the ILI admissions and ILI admissions custom age reports. Some users might have access to a great many reports. So don't be alarmed if what you see when you are looking at your available reports is different from what I'm showing you today. I'm just going to select one report here so we can see what that looks like. We'll look at yesterday, and I'm going to select New Jersey, obviously. Okay, so here's the ILI admissions report. If you've been a user for any amount of time, you're probably very familiar with this here. So we have a column representing all of the facilities that are currently sending data in the state, the date that we are looking at here, the number of total registrations in the emergency department for that particular facility, and then the number of those ED interactions that resulted in an inpatient admission. And then when you go further to the right on this report, you can see that we also break that down using a number of classifications associated with influenza-like illness. I'm sure you're not going to see a great deal of activity on this report in September, but that will likely be picking up soon. One other item to note is that we are actually releasing a new version of EpiCenter tonight. We will be pushing version 3.3. And one of the available bits of functionality in this release will allow us to send automated report emails to users. So This would be a good example. This particular report might be a good example of the kind of report that you might want to just have emailed to you every morning, rather than needing to log into the web app to pull up the report on your own. So just something to keep in mind. And again, this is the custom classifier tab. Not all users will have access to this tab, but since I did spend some time talking about some of the work that New Jersey users have done in creating custom classifications, I did want to just show you what this tab looks like. So for any given classification, we can create a classifier. We can associate positive and negative conditions with that particular classifier. And as long as that classification is in an editable state, you can continue to refine it until it is ready for publication. So, that's an FYI. And then the last thing that I wanted to show you today is just your options tab. So you would go here if you wanted to change your password. I did mention outbound files and report jobs. If you have a large file that you have delivered to you on a regular basis, the reports that we are going to have the ability to send out, those can just be sent as an email, but we spent some time earlier in the demo looking at charts and talking about how we can download data at the patient level. If you're doing retrospective data analysis and you find that you are in need of a large data file, please let me know. We can fairly easily prepare large files and then just make them available to you here on the Options tab, so that when you log in, you could just come here and download your chosen file from here rather than pulling chart after chart after chart and downloading the data that way. And then here, I did mention that on the summary page, you can make some changes to the view that you see when you log in. If you did want to do that, that would be accomplished here under Preferences. You can see for this account, the default region is New Jersey, and the default view is the classifier summary view. If you wanted to change this to any of these other options, you were able to do so right here. And then if you wanted to look at an option other than this particular state view, you can make that change here as well. The assignment emails preference list has to do with notifications that you would receive when a user assigns an investigation to you, and that can be changed here. Right. And that is the bulk of the information that I wanted to go through today. I'm going to open it up to questions now. I think I'll start with Teresa and just ask if there was anything else in particular that that I missed or you think that we could stand to go over in a little bit more depth.
I think you covered everything. Yes, I think you did well. Thanks.
Sure. So are there any questions or concerns?
Teresa, this is Pat Diamond from Atlantic County.
Hi, Pat.
Hi. Listen, will we be getting these, like, actually, as opposed to us going into the system, will we be getting these on a daily basis or every 2 hours, or will we actually have to be going into the system?
When you say these, what do you mean?
Charts, the surveillance data, as far as how you break it down from county, and then you break it down.
Are you getting any notifications now?
Yes.
For like alerts?
Yes, weekly.
You'll continue to get those. If you want to have alerts sent to you directly, like when an anomaly shows up in your jurisdiction and you want to have an alert sent about that, we can certainly set that up for you, or have Elizabeth set that up for you. That'd be something we can go through in detail maybe after the call. So otherwise, you would need to go in and pull the charts. It's not something that we're automatically sending out automatically. It is going to be by request.
Okay, thank you. So it'll be weekly still.
If that's what you're getting now, then yes.
Okay,
One thing we will be doing is we will be summarizing information for the state and sending that out daily. It won't, at this point, we don't have it broken out by geography, just because we'll be doing it for the whole state, and that would be a little bit, could be kind of time-consuming. But we will be sending out sort of an update on how many anomalies we saw, how many investigations were opened, and kind of the general resolution. And we'll be sending that to health officers every day, once a day, probably early to mid-afternoon. I would say between the 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock range.
And when will that start? Monday, the 21st?
That will start on Monday, although I do offer up the caveat that Monday is our first day doing this. Yeah. So it may be slightly later, just as we're trying to finalize how our methods and stuff. But yes, the intent is every day starting Monday, and going through the following Monday.
Thank you.
Huh?
Were there any other questions about anything in EpiCenter that you've seen or that you've been wondering about and I didn't cover? Okay. Hearing nothing, Teresa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. We really appreciate your time this week doing the trainings for us. Just a few notes. Pat Diamond's question is a really good one. So if you're not currently receiving notifications that you would like to receive, we can work on that, understanding that it might take a day or two to get everything processed, but we certainly want everyone to know that those are available to you. And it's not just for the post-visit. You can have those anytime. You should have received, or your health department should have received, a letter from Dr. Lifshitz late last week. And if you have questions about that letter, of course, you can follow up with us. Just some sort of key elements that I want to remind people about. There were some assumptions that are made. We're really focusing a lot of our activity on the area around Philadelphia, just under the assumption that the visits and the other locations where the Pope is going to be next week are closed events and invitation-only events. So we're not expecting quite the crowd issue that we will most likely see in Philadelphia. We keep hearing different estimates. At one point we've heard 1 to 2. We've heard as high as 3 to 4 million visitors coming in. But most of the most recent estimates are at about the 1 to 2 million visitor range. So we feel like the issues in Philadelphia have a lot more potential to have public impact versus the events in the other locations. One just reminder that you really want to do your disease reporting using standard protocols, going through your regional EPI. The regional EPIs will be following up on the anomalies related to the Pope's visit. Like Elizabeth said, we have a special classifier set up that is specifically keywords related to what we think people might be seen in an emergency department for during the visit. So just a reminder that that's going to be in place. So you may be hearing from your regional EPI a little more frequently than you might regularly. And just sort of that being said, I know that since the regional EPI program will be doing the regular anomaly follow-up, we do feel like there's some ways that EpiCenter is useful to you, not just for the Pope's visit, but sort of ongoing. So just looking at your anomalies in your jurisdiction, you have access to those. You can go in and just take a quick gander through and see kind of what's going on. You can use the charts. Let's say somebody asks you a question about, kind of what kind of illnesses are being seen in your local area. That's a good way to go and try to get do some charting to try to see how that's going. The maps with the air quality, I think I had not realized that mapping option was there, and I think that can be really helpful. And especially the ILI reports. What we found from both hospital and local health users is it really is a nice way for you to keep up with sort of the trends of influenza-like illness in your particular area. The ILI custom age report that Elizabeth pointed out, that's actually what Lisa uses to do some of her regular, or the flu program. Lisa's staff are using for reporting to CDC and also for the weekly flu summary that goes out. And I think just in general, it's a good idea at the jurisdiction level just to be familiar about what options EpiCenter has for you and what's going on in your jurisdiction on how you can look around for stuff. You may not use it every week, but if something comes up, I think it's a really powerful tool for you to be able to just take a quick look-see at what's happening in your jurisdictions. And we have some charting strategies and some sort of review strategies that if anybody's ever interested in those, we can certainly discuss them further. We could do another webinar such as this where we could really walk through them in more detail. That being said, that's kind of everything that we had planned to say for today. So are there other questions, both related to EpiCenter and New Jersey or related to the Pope's visit? All right, I'll take that. I'm hoping that's a good sign. I'm hoping it's going to be a really nice and calm week, other than we'll just likely see volume increases, but hopefully nothing of too serious a nature. If other questions come up, please just let us know. This webinar is being recorded, so with luck, we'll be able to post it on our website, and I can send out a link to everyone who was on the original invitation list. So if you have colleagues that weren't able to make either Wednesday's training or today's, please feel free to share that with them, or to send it to other colleagues who may not have been on that list that you think would benefit from knowing more about the system. If user access is needed, you just send me a quick email, and that my email address, I think, is on the letter. And then just lastly, one thing, as an FYI, I did send out a similar message to facilities today, a similar message to Dr. Lifshit's letter. It's really more specific to facilities and what we would want to see from them. So you may or may not get calls about that message. If it's something that you're not comfortable answering or you're not sure of the answer, don't hesitate to refer folks to call us here. That being said, we thank you very much for your interest, and let's hope it's a good week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.